Brent Rowlandson, GIS Supervisor, and Ryan Nelson, Director of MISA Prairies and IS Manager for the City of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
I'm also one who likes to wander around, so I'm going to do this. So thanks for the introduction, and thanks for inviting us to come to your conference. We're happy to be here, and we're learning a lot, not only for the city, but to take some things back to our MISA Prairies conference from some of the things that you do differently that is very useful for us. So anyways, yes, I'm Ryan Nelson. I'm the Information Services Manager for the City of Moose Jaw, and this is Brett. He's the GIS Supervisor. Brett's been with the city for 18 years. I've been there for 16. This is a bit of a homecoming for both of us, as we were actually both born in British Columbia. Brett was born in Fernie, and I was born in Chilliwack, actually. Brett still often vacations in Kimberley. I still have family in BC. Up north, Houston, Grand Isle, Kitimat areas. So I was actually fortunate to come back to BC and go up there this summer in July. If you're unfamiliar, Moose Jaw is a city in southern Saskatchewan. It's a population of about 36,000 people. It's located within Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota peoples, and is the homeland of the Métis Nation. I had to pull that up. We actually just have an official land acknowledgement for the city, so it wasn't in my notes. Moose Jaw is known for a few things besides, Brett and I and our award-winning presentations, such as Mac the Moose. Mac was the tallest moose in the world until about 2015. And it's kind of funny, during the Q&A for Norway yesterday, they were talking about not building a Terminator. That's actually what Norway did. So they built this Terminator-looking moose, and it's actually a foot taller than Mac, so that started a problem. We had the Moose Wars. This was a few years back, but there's this friendly rivalry that went on. It was picked up by international media. That's from the BBC. Stephen Colbert and some of the late night hosts picked it up. And then there was some international diplomacy. This is from the CBC. So we actually had the deputy mayor from the city that has the other moose come, and we eventually signed a moose truce. So we, gave Max some new antlers that actually made him a little taller. So he's actually a foot taller than the one in Norway now. So gave him a paint job, and all is well at this point. Moose Jaw also is Tunnels of Moose Jaw. We have a very strong tourism industry in Moose Jaw. We're the most notorious city in Moose Jaw, or most notorious city in Canada is our new tagline. So we have tunnels of. But we're also known for one more thing, and that's 15-wing Moose Jaw. It's home of NATO flight training in Canada. We bring pilots from multiple NATO nations to Canada, to Moose Jaw, and 15-wing, and that's where we give them their flight training. It's also home to the 431 Air Demonstration Squadron, or as you may know them, the Snowbirds. So, another interesting connection is we now have a new city manager. And this is Maurice Carmichael. Maurice was actually the first female Snowbirds pilot, and then in 2000, and then became the first female commanding officer in 2010. She was recently hired earlier this year as the new city manager. So that's the required tourism Moose Jaw component to my. All of this actually comes back, and it actually has something to do with it. So this is actually a presentation on the evolution of our drone program or as we sometimes refer to it as dealing with the Canadian Armed Forces in Transport Canada without losing your mind. So, picture it, Moose Jaw, December 2016. It's Christmas in IT. I do this little thing where people ask for things all year, and I'm like, ask me later. So we get to the end of our budget year in December. It's like, okay, what were those things you wanted to buy? And I call it Christmas in IT. Don't tell our finance department. So Brett comes to me and he says, I want to buy a drone. And, you know, referencing what Jazz said before, it's like drones are cool and they're neat and they're toys, but I'm like, okay, you want to buy a drone, but what's the business case? What are we going to use this for? Like, what is the business value in this? So I made Brett, you know, do a little bit of a business case, and he came back and it's like, we can do some interesting things and relate it to GIS and do data collection and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, let's do it. So we spent about $4,000 on a DJI Phantom 4 and all its accessories, we got it and everything. And the next step was, what do we need to do to be able to fly this thing? Well, remember these guys? They're a little particular about who uses their airspace, and as it turns out, all of the city of Moose Jaw is under restricted military-controlled airspace. So this is a problem, so I'll hand it over to Brett to go from there.
So, as Ryan mentioned, there's restrictions being in military airspace. Transport Canada has 2 levels of drone certifications for pilots. There's a basic and advanced certificate. For the above reasons, any flights in the city of Moose Jaw have to be done with the advanced certification. So we'd need to get both basic and advanced online tests, and then get the in-person flight review from a Transport Canada certified drone pilot to confirm we can safely operate a drone, and also supporting documentation around that. At this point in time, there was no specific curriculum for drone operations, so it was literally full-scale pilot ground school was the course. You're learning about magnetic deviation traveling across the North Pole, you know, different types of cloud formations, all things like that, because it was still quite new back then when we were looking at this. I'm hoping that there'll be more kind of focused on the drone specific operations. Transport Canada has been modifying the certifications towards that, but they feel like they have quite a long ways to go with that. So with the advanced certificate, it still couldn't just go out and fly due to being in restricted airspace. We needed to file for a Special Flight Operations Certificate, or an SFOC, from Transport Canada. Back then, the processing of that took 4 to 6 weeks to get through. So we would generally submit 2 or 3 dates that we'd like to fly, because it's Saskatchewan and it's a little drone, and there was a good chance weather would interfere if we just had one date. So we'd have the dates, we'd submit the SFOC. Once it was approved, we'd coordinate with 15 Wing, with the airbase, as well as file a NOTAM, or Notice to Airmen, with the Winnipeg Flight Operations Center. It was quite cumbersome and time-consuming, and at the early stages, coordination with the airbase was fairly difficult. They didn't really want to talk to us. Their initial answers were not helpful. Basically, they said, if you want to fly, we're not flying between, we fly between 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. weekdays, so you can't fly during that time. Made it hard when we're trying to get stuff done during our business hours in those same time frames. Excuse me. So finally, we were able to start flying, capture data. Our first flight that we had actually was for a bylaw enforcement issue. There was a property just kind of west edge of the city that was city-owned. It was suspected, though, that some individuals were using it as a dumping location for their waste from their business. So we flew the site. we're able to get some documentation of that location so that there was, so that the departments were able to follow up with that background data. It worked well. We did fly in January, which it was cold. We had issues with kind of jumping back in the car, warming up. And we also had firmware updates that we needed. So we were like tethering the phone to the drone during this. So, a lot of learning steps with it for sure. So spring came around and we were able to do and plan for a landfill flight. So we got the site flown and did a full 3D survey. Now, talking about the business justification that Ryan mentioned, we had our landfills near end of life. So we have restrictions around the size it can grow to, and we have reporting that we need to give to, I think, Environment Canada to safely run the landfill. Part of monitoring that landfill is we had an external company do a drone flight for us to do a volume measurement, and the one-time flight was $10,000. So this was a key one that we wanted to show to prove our kind of business case for the drone use.
So after we had the data and Brett had flown the landfill, the issue was we had to process it. And we tried a few options for processing. We originally tried a Windows 10 virtual machine. We tried a Windows Server virtual machine. These didn't work. Brett's desktop or laptop didn't work. So we were kind of at a crossroads where we've done the thing, we've got this data, but we can't process it because it's difficult to do on what we had for hardware. It was really slow because we didn't have enough CPU threads, or actually GPU power is really what was holding us back. So we started looking into a custom build. So what we actually did is we ordered the parts and custom built a $5,000 gaming PC in a friend's basement. At this point, we're about 10K in, a lot more than we originally anticipated of, hey, let's buy a drone for $4,000. But as Brett mentioned, this was actually the cost of having a contractor fly the landfill once. We have to do this twice a year, and we've done it 6 or 8 times now. So just from the landfill, we've probably saved the city $70K over the last few years.
So once we're using the custom gaming PC, we're able to more reliably process data more stably and in more reliable timeframes for turnaround. We started originally with Pix4D as our processing imagery platform, switched over to Esri's drone to map. At that point, it was more cost effective, and it integrated nicely in our Esri products for its GIS. We may be reevaluating it now. Licensing models has changed, but we're kind of trying to keep up with what the current good tools are that make sense for us. As Ryan mentioned, we're able to now do the spring and fall flights of the landfill. Also around 2020, Transport Canada removed the requirements for the SFOC. Their new requirements were if you're doing flights like these, you just need to coordinate with the supervising air authority, so with 15 Wing. So, and then by that time, we started to get a better relationship with 15 Wing. So we're generally able to email them, get about a day or two's worth of notice for when we wanted to fly, if they're okay with it. They give us approval on that day of flying. We would just have to contact the control tower, let them know where we are, what we're doing, and contact them again when they're on the ground and secure it out of their space. So some other business cases that we've have with it. Oops. So we're started doing different volume measurements of stuff that we have around the city. So this is just our dirt pile storage, trying to reconcile with what we're getting delivered, what's going out, and accounting for that. So we're able to do measurements on those data and present those out to Public Works for tracking that. some other different storages around the town. Wastewater storage lagoons, there was a need for, there was some planning for the capacity of these, and they needed to know, there was some notes that the person who ran it 20 years ago said they're this big, and no documentation around that number or if it was valid, so we flew the landfill. You'll notice there's snow there. That was another January flight, which is lovely to do. Have to warm up the iPad every once in a while in the car to keep going. Another one that we've used was for flood monitoring. We had a subdivision at the edge of the city where there's city land behind and a lot of snow accumulation. We just wanted to track the snow melt of what was draining and what was in city-owned property versus private homes, mostly for liability purposes to cover our butt. If some owners came to us about it, it's like we'd have documentation on where that snow was, how it was draining, what the city was doing to drain that. Thing to note with this one, we're now able to, get even less notice. I was phoning with 1 day's notice till 15 wing, and I was like, I'd like to fly all week. And they're good to go. They're like, yeah, that's fine. Just contact the control tower, give us approval to fly. We also started capturing construction video of various projects around the city. This was mostly for promotional purposes. Our communications director would use this video, post on YouTube channel and tweet it out, updates, kind of communicate what the good work that the city was doing around the town, the improvements we're making to infrastructure and projects.
So at this point, we were still limited with the restriction of not flying the drone over the public. So we did fly the reveal of Mac the Moose's new antlers, and we had a big community reveal and all of that. But we're still requiring for these sort of promotional things, we're still required to coordinate with 15 Wing. So last fall we purchased a Mavic Mini 3. This is a sub 250 gram drone. It allows us to fly closer to people and doesn't require any pre-approval from 15 Wing to fly at all. We can be on site and taking video in relative short notice. In the summer of 2023, we shot promotional video for several recreation opportunities in the city of Moose Jaw, such as the opening of our new pickleball courts and our outdoor pool, which we're hoping to get federal funding to replace because it leaks a lot. We've recently received the replacement to our 6-year-old proof of concept Phantom 4. We now have a DJI Mavic 3 Enterprise RTK. This drone's faster, more stable in windy conditions, and has a mechanical camera shutter which allows it to take pictures much faster. We included a real-time kinematics module along with our new GPS base station, increases the accuracy of the drone's reported position, resulting in more precise data collection.
Yeah, so today we have a good working relationship with 15 Wing, can generate 5 within 1 day's notice, and then calling the control tower before and after flight. We're getting more varied requests from different departments for drone flights as awareness of the services of drone. Kind of feeding on Jazz's comment this morning, we're starting working a little bit with fire department. We've captured some post-fire pictures to help with training and documentation of how the fire spread from a straight down aerial view. It's imagery that the chief is very happy with, stuff that he wouldn't have access to before, for sure. We can process data now also in a timely manner, and we feel that overall we're bringing excellent value to the city with this program. So thank you everyone for your time and the invitation to your conference. And we're happy to answer any questions or
Yeah, I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions, probably.
Yeah. Did the city manager help because of her relationship?
Maurice was hired this year, so we were well into the program by then, but having her as the city manager, I'm sure will help foster better relationship with the military and 15 Wing for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, quick question over here. What do you think the chances of the Moose Truce maintaining over the next few years?
So the truce was actually written that the city of Norway has no interest in making their moose taller or to, make any changes to it. It was actually like made in China and shipped there and put together in Norway, so it's not even native to Norway. So if some other city comes along and tries to build a bigger moose, I don't know. We'll deal with that when it comes along, I suppose.
And actually, a lot of local businesses donated and put support in and an effort to improve the moose for sure. So it was local.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.